Inihahandog ng NSTP Diliman Office ang Sikhay Lingkod V, an online volunteerism fair.
Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Ako po si Ybera ng Citizens Disaster Response Center. At ang aking pong ibibigay ay syempre kung ano po ang ginagawa ng CDRC para po sa ating bayan. Ang aming pong motto ay helping people help themselves. At from that motto po, makikita na po natin na talagang kami ay tumutulong for sustainable na resiliency ng mga communities. Hindi po kami yung mga tipong nagbibigay ng relief lang, pero we try to help the community be sustainable and resilient in disasters kasi we are in the disaster risk reduction management sector. So ano po ba ang CDRC? Ang CDRC po ay na-establish noong 1984 at kami po ay isa sa mga pioneer ng community-based disaster management. Ano pong ibig sabihin nito? Naniniwala po ang CDRC na ang disaster management ay dapat nakababa sa ating mga komunidad. Malaki po tulong, syempre, ang ating government para po sa bibigay ng management sa mga disaster, pero po importante na ang pagmamanage mismo ay nasa community dahil sila ang nakakaalam ng sitwasyon nila sa pagdating sa mga hazards and disasters. Alam nila kung saan babaha, alam nila kung sino ang mga pwedeng tumulong at mga iba-iba pang bagay. Member rin po kami ng different networks katulad po ng aming Citizens Disaster Response Network. Meron po kami 16 regional partners all over the Philippines na they are also into disaster management. Member rin po kami ng DRRNet Philippines, Action Klima, Action Klima. DRRNet stands for Disaster Risk Reduction Network of the Philippines. Ito po ang CSO representative na sa NDRRMC. Member rin po kami ng Climate Change Network for Community Initiatives at yung ASCENT at marami pa pong iba. So ano po ba ang mga guidelines or yung aming framework ng aming community-based disaster management? Una po, inaalam namin na ang disaster ay question of people's vulnerabilities. Ibig sabihin, may hazards, pero hindi lahat naman ng naha-hazard, kunyari bagyo, lindol, ay mga taong vulnerable. So most of the time, yung mga nadi-disaster o yung mga napapahamak sa mga hazards na ito ay yung mga vulnerable communities. Most of them are in the geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas ng Pilipinas. And syempre po, aside doon sa vulnerability, kailangan i-address din po natin bakit vulnerable ang mga tao. So, syempre, andyan yung mga socio-econ situations nila, andyan din po yung mga cultural, mga nakasanayan nila sa kanilang buhay. And pwede rin po, syempre, part pa rin yung sa family and sa community. At tapos po, isa doon ay, syempre, yung nire-recognize namin yung strengths ng people's capacities to become less vulnerable or to become resilient. Kasi alam natin na ang first responder talaga pag may disaster ay yung mga taong nasa community and they can be empowered na makita nila kung ano yung mga capacity nila, ano yung strengths nila para sila mismo yung tutulong sa sarili nila. Tapos po, syempre, we consider people's participation as essential to disaster management. Kahit naman po alam nila na may strength sila, pero kung hindi naman sila nagpa-participate sa disaster management, hindi sila kailangan kasama sila sa planning, kailangan kasama sila sa paggawa ng mga policies, kailangan kasama sila sa, let's say, mapping ng kanilang communities. Dahil sila yung nandun, sila yung nakakaalam kung ano ang tama para sa kanila as a community. And syempre, we also focus on the organizational capacity of vulnerable sectors. mahirap po kasi mag-respond o mahirap harapin ang mga disaster kung hindi ka organized as a group. We develop disaster preparedness committees sa mga barangay levels, minsan mga purok levels, dahil alam natin na kung hindi sila organized, kung hindi sila united, kung hindi sila organized, mas magiging vulnerable sila. Only sa sama-samang pagkilos talaga sila makakaigpaw sa kanilang vulnerability. And syempre, we also acknowledge yung partnership between vulnerable and less vulnerable sectors. So yung mga vulnerable, tapos yung less vulnerable, mostly yung mga nasa middle class, at yung mga hindi vulnerable, which are the companies or yung mga malalaking, yung mga mayayaman. So, ini-encourage namin yung mga less vulnerable sectors na to na tumulong dun sa mga vulnerable communities. So, naniniwala nga, syempre, it's a shared partnership, yung community-based disaster management. Andiyan syempre ang government, who are the duty bearers, sila yung dapat talagang tumutulong para maging lesser ang vulnerabilities. Tapos syempre ang community, and syempre yung private and other sectors. That's why, disaster risk reduction is a shared responsibility for all. So ano yung mga programs and services ng CDRC? We have the research, advocacy, and public information. Siyempre, andyan yung mga data gathering na ginagawa sa communities. Yan yung tuturo natin sa kanila kung ano bang pwede nilang gawin to advocate yung kanilang mga panawagan. For example, mas anti-mining, mga ganyan. Tapos, syempre, yung public information. Kasi kung meron ka advocacy, hindi mo naman ilalabas, mahihirapan tayong kumuha ng mga susuporta sa ating mga advokasya. Tapos, syempre, yung partnership and development, like what I said earlier, we have to partner with less vulnerable sectors of the community. And syempre, yung disaster prevention and mitigation. These three, research, partnership and development, disaster prevention and mitigation, usually we do this during peacetime. So, ibig sabihin, ito yung mga panahon na hindi pa dumarating ang hazard, walang disaster pang nangyayari. So, like now, medyo hindi tayo peacetime kasi dahil sa bagyong Paeng. So, dun sa mga areas na hindi masyadong naapektuhan, pwede natin gawin ito. And of course, yung emergency response, we always do this. And the rehabilitation. Yung rehabilitation is after the disaster comes. Anong gagawin natin? Hindi naman tayo panay response lang tapos iiwan na natin sila pagkatapos. Tutulungan natin silang makabangon. Tutulungan natin silang makabalik sa dati nilang pamumuhay. So, andyan yung tutulungan natin silang kahit pa paano yung sa kanilang mga food, paano sila magiging sustainable, bibigyan natin sila ng mga seeds, kung mga mangingisda yan, tutulungan natin sila sa mga boats or yung kanilang mga pangingisda, yung tools nila sa pangingisda, and other things. So if you will look at this picture yan yung aming mga activities. So the first picture is yan yung nag-hazard map, yung mga taga Laurel, Batangas, dahil nga nung pumutok Bulkang Taal, so kailangan nating makita ano-ano ba yung mga hazards na nandun sa kanilang area, paano yung flow ng lava kung bumahaman, and so you can see that they are mapping their community. Tapos ito syempre yung pag-a-advocacy, yung advocacy ginagawa, ano yung pwede nilang gawin. Tapos ito yung third, yan yung mga volunteer. Actually, most of our volunteers are from the community themselves. And the members of the disaster preparedness committees are all volunteers of the community. Tapos, ito po sila, yung mga farmers na binigyan natin ng mga farm tools after nung bagyong Rolly. Tapos, syempre, pag may ganyang bagyo, merong, let's say, psychosocial o kaya mental health. So, how are we going to help them with that? And ito yung sa bagyong Odette. Nagbigay po tayo ng mga shelter kits sa mga nasalanta sa Caraga region. So that's really quick. If you want more information, you may reach us on these details. And thank you.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. I was requested by one of our services to discuss and to provide an overview of the Office of Civil Defense po, no? Dito sa Sikhay Lingkod. And again, I am RJ, the Chief of HR. I would like to give you an overview lang po of the Office of Civil Defense. And before I begin, may I just take this opportunity to clarify sino ba si Office of Civil Defense at sino ba si NDRRMC or the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council. Si OCD po ay hindi si NDRRMC. The NDRRMC is this is a council composed of different government agencies, CSOs, and private sectors. While the OCD is working with the NDRRMC as the executive arm of the council. So kami po yung agency, while the NDRRMC is the council. So ang chairperson po ng council is the Department of National Defense, the Secretary of the National Defense, and kami po ay under ng Department of National Defense. So ito lang po yung scope of my short presentation, the legal basis of OCD, the mandate, the OCD mission, vision, and our core values, and the organizational structure. Now, of course, ever since nagkaroon po ng OCD way back 1972 through the LOI or Letter of Intent number 19, it was strengthened during the time na na-develop or na-develop po yung NDCC or the National Disaster Coordinating Council through Presidential Decree 1566. And later on, during the stint of the former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, the RA 10121 or the Act establishing the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council was passed into law. So ito po yung basis natin ngayon ng pag-establish ng NDRRMC and yung pag-establish mga disaster risk reduction and management plans, programs, and policies. So based on the Republic Act number 10121 is an act strengthening the Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction and Management System, providing for the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Framework, and institutionalizing the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Plan, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes. So basically, ito po yung ating batas na sinusunod sa pag-create ng council on the national level at mga local disaster risk reduction and management sa ating mga provincial and local government units. As mandated by the law, the Office of Civil Defense as the implementing arm or the executive arm of the NDRRMC shall have the primary mission of administering a comprehensive national civil defense and disaster risk reduction and management program by providing leadership in the continuous development of strategic and systematic approaches. Now, as the Chief of HR, marami po kaming na-interview mga applicants dito sa OCD, no? And nakikita nila pag pinapadescribe ko ano yung idea nila about OCD, medyo ang tingin nila sa OCD ay frontline workers pagdating sa disaster response particularly. However, I would like to emphasize po na hindi kami yung frontline in terms of disaster response. Kasama lang po ang disaster response sa isa sa binibigyan naming leadership as the executive arm of the council. We are more on orchestrating disaster response. We are more on managing and leading disaster risk reduction and management program in terms of disaster prevention and mitigation, disaster preparedness, disaster response, and rehab and recovery programs. So yun po yung isa sa gusto kong i-emphasize na ang OCD is an agency that orchestrates the implementation of a comprehensive disaster, civil defense and disaster risk reduction and management program. The mission is to administer a comprehensive civil defense and DRRM programs towards a safer and resilient communities. And by 2022, well, of course, our vision way back pa po nung mga former administration no? Yung vision is by 2022, by this year, OCD is a fully capacitated agency in implementing an integrated civil defense and DRRM program. For now po, we are on the process of revising our strategic plan because of this new administration. Kaya basically itong vision ng OCD was already been met by the OCD, and medyo tinaasan namin yung vision namin for the next couple of years. Now, just to share with you our core values as an organization, we are living with the EPIC, of course, the excellence in terms of providing DRRM and civil defense programs, implementation of those programs, professionalism, integrity, and commitment. Well, sa OCD po, basically hindi man kami yung pumupunta dun sa disaster-stricken areas or mismong sa ground, no? But we conduct augmentation. We provide augmentation sa mga first responder. And also, kung mapapansin po ninyo, whenever there are some areas na disaster, no, pumapasok dyan ang national government, kasama po doon ang OCD, particularly in providing augmentation sa communications. Lalo na yung mga hindi na naabot ng communications dahil nag-down yung communication nila or for other reason, dyan po nag-augment pa rin ang OCD. And of course, we are also providing, or we are manning, the 24/7 NDRRMC Operation Center. So we are working on the framework of DRRM, particularly on the three key results areas: the disaster risk reduction, the disaster preparedness and response, and the Build Back Better principle. Of course, this is a collaborative approach, a whole of government approach po on DRRM, particularly in strengthening the 4 thematic pillars of disaster risk reduction and management, which is the disaster prevention and mitigation, preparedness, response, and rehabilitation and recovery. So towards this end, the NDRRMC, in principle or by principle of the whole of government approach, we are aiming for a safer, adaptive, and disaster resilient Filipino communities towards sustainable development. So marami pong, if you have time po, no? If you have time, you may browse po sa NDRRMC or sa Office of Civil Defense website yung National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Plan. Diyan po makikita natin ano ba yung mga specific objectives, ano ba yung mga outcome indicators and specific activities na ginagawa natin to strengthen, to be more resilient pagdating po sa disaster preparedness, no? So if you have time, medyo mahaba-haba po itong document na ito, at doon po natin makikita ano pa yung role ng ibang government agencies pagdating po sa DRRM and civil defense. So this is the example po of the framework or the implementation of the framework, particularly on the 4 thematic areas of DRRM, and these are specific outcome indicators po for us to meet our vision, a safer, adaptive, and disaster-resilient Filipino communities. Each of the outcome indicators po, may mga lead government agencies po dyan. At ang isa sa trabaho po ng OCD ay ma-monitor kung ito ba ay nai-implement or ito ba ay nagagawa ng bawat government agencies. As to internal organizational structure, the OCD po is composed of several offices, no? Catering also or providing also a technical and secretariat support to the thematic pillars. So we have 5 major services. We have the Administrative and Financial Management Service. Basically, ito po ay support to operations. While other services such as Policy Development and Planning Service, Capacity Building and Training Service, Operation Service, and Rehab and Recovery Management Service, ito naman po yung nagtatrabaho dun sa mga programs na nakapaloob dun sa interim plan under the 4 thematic pillars. Right now po, the Office of Civil Defense is being led by none other than the USEC or the administrator, and the executive director po ng NDRRMC, which is USEC Raimundo Benitez Ferrer. And we have the 2 deputy administrator, ASEC Hernando Caraig Jr. and ASEC Rafaelito Alejandro IV, also our spokesperson and the NDRRMC spokesperson. Sa regional offices naman po, if there are some of you coming from the regions, meron po tayong 17 regional offices and almost the same din po yung organizational structure. Though medyo maliit po at flat ang organization natin sa regional office because our OCD regional offices serves as the chairperson of the Regional Disaster Risk Reduction and Management programs or RDRIMC Council sa regional level po. So basically, ito po yung mga functions. You may visit this sa amin pong website. No? Ito yung mga specific functions and programs na ini-implement ng OCD on a very strategic level. So basically, kung titignan po natin, dahil nga hindi naman totally ang OCD ang pumupunta sa ground para mag-provide ng disaster response or mga specific or detailed programs for DRRM, medyo strategic po ang approach ng OCD as the executive arm of the council. So kanina nabanggit po about volunteerism, kung medyo mahaba-haba lang po sana yung time natin, no? Pero pwede niyo pong basahin, pwede niyo pong i-browse itong NDRRMC Memorandum Circular Number 64 Series of 2021. Ito po yung guidelines on the accreditation, mobilization, and protection of community disaster volunteers. This is based on Republic Act number 10121. Again, it shall be the policy of the state to engage the participation of civil society organizations or CSOs, the private sector, and volunteers in the government's disaster risk reduction programs towards implementation of resources and effective delivery of services to the citizenry. Again, we acknowledge na yung resources, katulad po na nabanggit ng keynote speaker natin kanina, we acknowledge in the government yung limited resources that we have. Kaya kasama po sa in-implement ng OCD, yung nasa 10121, na to conduct or to develop and establish guidelines on accreditation of disaster volunteers. So dun po sa guidelines na yan, makikita po natin later on, kung mababasa po ninyo, makikita po natin ano-ano yung mga qualifications, ano-ano yung mga criteria na kailangan ng isang disaster volunteer group para sila ay ma-accredit. No? And may mga benepisyo rin po na nandun nakapaloob doon para maprotektahan yung mga volunteer groups natin na namobilize natin during disaster response. So doon po sa guidelines na yon, isa sa highlights or salient features na yon is yung pag-apply ng accreditation through the local disaster risk reduction and management councils or LDRIMCs. So may step-by-step process po at nandun din nakasulat sa MC 64 Series of 2021, lahat po ng kailangan nating i-prepare or lahat ng kailangan nating i-submit for us to be accredited as a community disaster volunteers. Aside from that, the OCD have these annual programs like the NSED or the National Simultaneous Earthquake Drill, the Gawad Kalasag, which is our assessment to different government agencies and private sectors. The National Disaster Resilience Month, wherein kami po at yung kasama ang aming mga regional offices ay naghahanap din ng mga volunteers for disaster resilience caravan, and even yung aming Tresilience, yung tree planting activity na ginaganap tuwing National Disaster Resilience Month. Aside from that, we also conduct capacity building and training programs relative to DRRM and civil defense. Foreign partnerships, advocacy programs, of course, we are manning a 24/7 operation center, including yung mga alternate command and control centers located in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Of course, during disaster, we lead the conduct of the pre-disaster risk assessment and the dissemination of early warning and alert messages. Ito po yung mga nare-receive nating mga messages every time na tayo po ay may paparating na bagyo. Post-disaster needs assessment and the facilitation of the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Fund or NDRIM Fund. So those are major programs and activities. So one of the major programs and activities of the OCD. And isa sa mga questions na ibinigay sa akin sa email po is paano kaya makakapag-contribute yung aming yung mga estudyante sa OCD. Of course, we accept yung internships or yung mga interns po. No? Usually po, ang mga nare-receive namin is about research or kapag yung mga estudyante ay may mga kinakandak na research regarding DRRM or civil defense, we actually cater and we actually accommodate them, no? Dahil again, isa po sa services na meron ng OCD is the Policy and Development Service, wherein may mga kinakandak tayong mga researches to strengthen the implementation of a comprehensive DRRM. And ginagamit din natin, tinutulungan din natin yung ating mga students na gustong mag-conduct ng research about this field, about DRRM, na makapag-gather ng data at makakuha ng information. And at the same time, kami rin po ay makakuha ng insight from them. Aside from that, we also accept interns or yung mga nag-OJT po, no? And maparanas sa kanila yung ginagawa ng OCD, particularly doon sa 24/7 Operation Center. So, yung mga requirements po, yung mga basic requirements lang naman na ginagawa or binibigay sa isang institution or agency, like the endorsement letter from the head of the university, a short write-up on the research agenda of the student or the group of students kung sila po ay magkakandak ng research, the profile of the students, and we will conduct a short interview with them, and the MOA or the Memorandum of Agreement signed by the head of the university or the endorsing school. So, yung mga gagraduate naman po sa inyong school, sa inyong paaralan, no? If you are interested to apply then sa OCD, we have several vacancies po na pwede ninyong applyan pag kayo ay nakatapos na ng bachelor's degree. And dito medyo ma-experience po natin na hindi tayo frontliners, pero frontline tayo in terms of providing leadership, particularly in strengthening disaster preparedness, disaster prevention and mitigation, disaster response, and rehab and recovery programs. So yun po ang OCD. And again, I would like to emphasize that the OCD is not the NDRRMC, but we are the leader or the executive arm of the council. So medyo ano po siya. Again, it's more on providing and orchestrating the implementation of DRRM rather than being dun sa talagang frontline services po. But again, dahil dun sa 24/7 Operation Center, mas na-experience ng bawat empleyado and yung mga naging intern namin dito sa OCD, yung pagiging worker, DRRM worker, particularly during disaster po na may experience sila na medyo walang tulog dahil naka-red alert or naka-blue alert. And OCD has been in the front line even during the surge of pandemic. Kaya kami po ay isa sa mga naging frontliners during the pandemic, particularly in distribution or during the distribution of the PPEs to different hospitals and LGUs, and even yung pagman at pag-provide ng logistical requirements ng mga temporary treatment facilities and isolation facilities. So that is OCD po, and I hope mabasa po natin yung MC64, particularly, medyo mahaba-haba lang po yon, particularly on the accreditation or application for disaster volunteers. That's all po for me. Thank you very much.
Sa oportunidad, no, na makapag-share din sa ating mga reservists, mga NSTP graduates or students, kung ano naman po ang ginagawa ng Center for Disaster Preparedness. So building on what you've already heard from, of course, our mothership, the CDRC, and from OCD. So nakita niyo from Chief Mago's presentation na isa sa malaking leaf doon sa National DRRM Framework ay ang disaster preparedness, and nalaman din natin from CDRC na mahalaga at malaki ang stake na ang role na play ng communities, no, sa resilience building ng ating mga komunidad. So given that, I'd like to present then what is ano ba yung ginagawa ng CDP. So ang main tagline niya is promoting the community's rights to safe, resilient, and sustainable future. So ibig sabihin, tinutulungan natin ang komunidad na talagang makapagtulungan, whole of society approach, makapagtulungan with the government, ma-enjoy din yung iba't ibang sectors within their community, like private sectors, especially the vulnerable sectors, and to really assess yung kanilang mga risk and develop their own plans. So a brief history lang po, as I've said, kami po ay galing sa CDRC. Dati po siyang Disaster Resource Training Center carved out of the Training and Education Desk of the CDRC. So noong 1999 po ay official siyang register sa SEC. Ang aming pong vision ay sustainable, safe, disaster resilient, and disaster resistant community where there is an enabling environment for people to uphold their rights to development. So malaki po yung pagtingin natin sa tao, no, yung kakayahan nila na ma-involve sila, makaparticipate meaningfully sa mga available spaces and democratic spaces na dapat ay ini-ensure ng pamahalaan, especially sa local government na meron at nakakasama sila. Ang mission po niya, dahil yun ang aming vision, ay mas strengthen yung capacity, especially ng mga vulnerable groups. So kasama po dito mga kababaihan, mga kabataan, mga bata, mga may kapansanan, ang mga IPs, including na rin ang ating mga LGBTQI communities. So para po sa community-based development-oriented disaster risk reduction management to uphold their rights and reduce their vulnerabilities. And of course, while meron kaming ginagawang mga pagsasanay, mga initiatives involving all those sectors, malaki rin po yung pakikipagtulungan sa mga ahensya ng gobyerno at pamahalaan para ma-achieve yung vision na yun. Ang goal po natin ay magkaroon ng empowered frontliners sa DRRM at matugunan talaga ng duty bearers at service providers. Service providers, ibig sabihin, mga NGOs, mga civil society organizations na maging responsive and uphold human rights and dignity in DRRM endeavors. So ano nga ba po yung mga opportunities na for volunteering sa aming organization? So tulad ng mga nakikita nyo sa picture, dito sa picture na ito, tinulungan namin ang isang komunidad, coastal community sa Mercedes, sa Camarines Norte, na matrain kung paano mag-evacuate ng mga isda. Of course, meron din kaming mga drills for communities, pero particularly pinapakita lang dito na hindi lang tayo natatali or hindi lang buhay ang dapat din tinitignan natin before a disaster or before a hazard strikes sa community. May pagtingin po din tayo sa kabuhayan. Sa mga ilan pang mga communities namin ay of course nariyan ang mga simulation exercises na mas may pagtingin sa earthquake, sa sunog at sa pagbaha. Ayan. Ilan pang sa ginagawa niya ay of course kapareho din ng CDRC pag-organize ng mga people's organizations within communities, pag-make sure na aktibo yung local DRRM office or councils within local government. At kaugnay nun ay nagtitrain po kami ng mga tao sa barangay, ng mga local DRRM offices para malaman nila kung ano dapat yung responsibilidad nila, role nila, yung mga proseso na kaugnay dun sa community-based DRRM, and sa mga panahon na kailangan din magsanay, magbigay ng relief operations and psychosocial support interventions. Nagbibigay rin po kami ng pagsasanay sa mental health and psychosocial support services. Ayan. So, yung mga yun po ay kung interesado kayo medyo matuto, matunghayan kung paano siya isinasagawa, pwede po kayo makipag-ugnayan sa aming opisina. Karamihan po sa mga nagiging intern ng CDP ay nanggagaling po sa mga universidad. Hindi lang po dito sa Pilipinas, meron din po laging bumibisita mula sa Germany, mula sa Netherlands. At nakakalungkot dahil sila mismo yung natututo sa ating mga ginagawa sa ating mga community. So, mas maganda siguro na tayo mismo, yung mga kabataang Pilipino, mga volunteers natin, talagang matuto dahil ako din po ay nag-start na volunteer sa CDP nung ako estudyante at hanggang ngayon ay nasa CDP pa din. So malaki siyang, hindi lang siya nakakatulong um, sa karunungan, sa dulo, maaari din makapagbukas ito ng oportunidad para sa karera or career. Isa pang programa po ng CDP ay ang Technical Assistance. Ito nga po yung program na ako ang program coordinator. Mas ito naman ay nag-implement ng mga research, advocacy, sumasama po sa mga pagbubuo ng mga module. Ayan, nakikipag-partner po siya sa mga CSOs, people's organization para makapag-provide po ng technical services tulad ng there's assessment, rights-based humanitarian action and protection, family level preparedness, year-end planning and contingency planning, early warning systems. Ayan. So, sa mga pagsasanay na po ito, kung kayo po ay mag-volunteer, marami pong role na pwede gampanan. No? Pwede kayo makasama sa mga mini sessions or workshops. Pwede rin po kayong, kung meron kayong talento sa sa photography or social media or graphics, ay makakasama po doon sa pagkagawa din ng mga ibang mga presentasyon na gagamitin doon sa mga pagsasanay. Aktibo din po tayo sa paggawa ng mga manual, kaya po madalas ay nangailangan din po ng mga marunong sa InDesign, Photoshop. Kung nag-edit po ng video ay mas pwede rin po mag-volunteer dahil yun po ay isa din sa mga core competency ng mga staff ng CDP sa Technical Assistance Program. So, ayun po. Ito lang po yung ibang mga services namin sa research. Ayan. So, as you can see, nagpo-produce kami ng IEC materials. Nagko-conduct din po kami ng learning events at study tours. Sa study tours po ay meron kaming mga kinakonduct na study tour, nag-host tayo ng study tour mula pa sa mga karating ng mga bansa, so mga counterpart ng mga agency sa DRM mula sa Sri Lanka, mula sa Bangladesh, at katunayan po ay sa mga susunod na buwan, sa susunod na taon, ay magkakaroon po ng exchange din, no? Ng practices between nations within Asia. So India, mga bansa sa Southeast Asia ay bibisita dito at bibisita din po yung mga from partners natin sa Philippine Preparedness Partnership ay may engage din po doon. So interesting din po siya at kapag mag-volunteer po kayo ay makakasalamuhan po ninyo din yung mga bisita yon at matututo mula sa kanila. Ayun. So like I said, meron din po kaming intervention for mental health and psychosocial support services. Ito po ay madalas ginagawa namin online, lalo na nung pandemya, dahil marami po talaga naapektuhan. At pag meron pong disaster events ay face-to-face, pinupuntahan po yung lugar kung saan medyo medyo limitado yung tumutulong. Doon po nagfo-focus ang CDP at kadalasan, aside from food items, ay nagbibigay po ng mental health and psychosocial support. Ayun. So, ang mga recent publications niya ay ang mga ito, inclusive data management system, fostering resilience in times of crisis, manual sa pagsasanay. So, nagde-develop po siya ng mga ang CDP ay nagde-develop ng mga materials base sa kanyang mga karanasan, mga natututunan sa pag-implementa ng mga proyekto o programa in partnership with its donor funders tulad ng UNICEF, USAID, partner din po natin sa Philippine Preparedness Partnership ang OCD at ang PDRF, UPRI, ayan, In Touch Philippines, EDPC. Meron din po tayong partnership dati sa Voice. So kung gusto niyo pa po matutunan ang mga ginagawa ng CDPF, maaari po kayong pumunta sa aming website, cdp.org.ph. may mga bago rin po kaming mga project na hindi pa namin nasasama sa slides. Mas siguro dito nyo malalaman kung paano kayo wala kaming masyadong spesipikong volunteer program. Kumbaga nag-tailor fit po kami ng programa base sa gustong matutunan ng volunteer, base doon sa meron kaming project or programa na ni-implement na kung saan makakatulong yung volunteer. At mahalaga lang po na ma-pinpoint, ma-identify at ma-ensure kung ano ba yung gustong matutunan ng volunteer at kung ano yung goal at kung meron bang swak na programa within CDP na pwedeng pasukan. Ayan. And ito po yung mga areas namin within the Philippines, mga areas na may proyekto at currently. Ayan. So again, ako po si Mike from Center for Disaster Preparedness, your Technical Assistance Program Coordinator, at yun lang po ang aking presentation. Maraming salamat.
For inviting us. We're from Youth-Led. So Youth-Led is basically a program of USAID and the Asia Foundation. So basically, tatlo yung focus niya: youth coalition, youth leadership, and civic engagement. So klaro, dun po sa aming mga presentation, na isasend ko na lang po sa inyo kung ano yung mga youth initiatives na ginagawa ng Youth-Led to make sure na ang bawat mamamayan, especially ang mga kabataan, ay nakafocus pagdating sa youth and democracy. No? So klaro na gampanin ng kabataan na ipakita na ang kanyang pagiging mulat sa mga isyong panglipunan at mga problema at na kinakaharap natin ay dapat masolusyonan sa pamamagitan ng pag-participate dito sa democratic process. And these things ay ginawa ng Youth-Led for the past election. Nagkaroon ng monitoring and evaluation, and of course, nagkaroon din tayo ng mga youth leadership formation, and of course, youth leadership development and voters empowerment sessions. Coming from the idea na meron po tayong space na dapat gampanan, ito po yung kailangan natin ma-emphasize, no? Because we have to take that space as citizen as an important element of our democracy. Kung hindi po natin naangkinin yung spasyong ito, mawawala po ito sa atin at hindi tayo mabibigyan ng pagkakataon upang marinig. Ang sabi nga namin, kung gusto po natin mapakinggan ng ating mamamayan ang tinig mismo nila, kailangan pumasok po tayo sa sistema at magkaroon po tayo ng klarong direction. So again, yun lang po mula po sa amin. Pasensya na po, I was not able to catch all of the conversation, but definitely again, we will send the presentation to all of you, and God bless everyone. Thank you.
City Firefighters Volunteer Association Incorporated. QCFVAI is a nonprofit organization, was founded on January 1990 by founding chairman Mr. Vincent together with 8 well-experienced firefighters from several fire brigades within the city of Manila, and was formally registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission SEC. The QCFVAI was the first volunteer firefighting organization in Quezon City to support the Bureau of Fire Protection. The organization started with a single firefighting apparatus named Quezon Engine, a second-hand 1975 Ford Motors Corp fire engine. The 9 individuals refurbished the fire engine and start responding to help the community within its jurisdiction. After the community witnessed the efforts of QCFVAI, they started to be involved with the organization's activities by joining and giving financial support that the group needs to continue their act of volunteerism and to expand the capabilities of QCFVAI. The QCFVAI was also given the opportunity to attend and be trained by the United States Defense Threat Reduction Agency DTRA, Chemical, Biological, Radiological, Nuclear, and Explosives CBRNE, and Incident Command System ICS. Currently, the QCFVAI are trained in advanced firefighting, hazardous material hazmat, standard first aid, basic life support BLS, first responder, advanced cardiac life support ICLS, water search and rescue WSAR, and high-angle rescue HART. Through the years, with the dedication and commitment of the members to the community, the QCFVAI expanded to 76 members and 8 firefighting apparatus. Vision: to further enhance and expand the capabilities of the organization. Mission: to further educate the community in risk reduction.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Again, I am Mr. Mateo Siron, a firefighter from Quezon City Firefighters Volunteer Association Incorporated. Maraming salamat po sa pag-invite sa QCFVAI para sa napaka-meaningful and important activity ng UP Diliman NSTP. Para po sa mga scholar ng bayan, magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Ang Quezon City Firefighters Volunteer Association po ay binubuo ng mga volunteer firefighters na may mga sari-sariling field sa pamumuhay, no. Meron po tayong mga businessman, meron po tayong mga public servants. At sa QCFDAI po ay nagkakandak tayo ng firefighting, search and rescue, medical field. At the same time, tumulong din po tayo sa ating local government in terms po nung pandemic season or COVID season. So, yung Quezon City Firefighters Volunteer Association Incorporated po ay hindi lang siya sa mga ganitong larangan ng pagbibigay serbisyo sa bayan, ano. So, nagbibigay din po tayo ng relief operations dahil ang Quezon City Firefighters Volunteer Association po ay merong tinatawag na mother unit. So, binubuo po ito ng iba-ibang mga grupo din ng mga firefighters na kapag ka nagkaroon ng kalamidad o mga sakuna ay nagsasama-sama ulit para magbigay naman or mag-conduct ng relief operation natin, ano. So, kami po ay hinihikayat po namin kayo na mga scholar ng bayan at sa mga kasama po ninyo, kung meron po kayong mga kaibigan na gustong sumali sa volunteer world, sa Quezon City Firefighters Volunteer Association, onti lang naman po yung aming requirements, ano. So dapat po good moral po tayo. I mean at least na wala po tayong kaso ganyan. Kasi napaka importante po 'yon kapag tayo po ay nagseserbisyo sa bayan. So dapat po meron po tayong good moral. So especially dapat po physically fit po tayo kasi ito pong volunteer work na ginagawa natin ay napaka-physical po ang kailangan para sa gawain pong ito, ano. So dapat po meron din po tayong parents consent or relative approval kasi sa larangan po na ganitong ginagawa natin is napakadelikado po. Sabi nga po nila na ang isang bumbero ay kapag lumabas na ng fire station at sumakay na ng fire truck is napakadelikado na po 'yon kasi along the way pa lang kapag papunta tayo sa nire-respondehan natin or sa pupuntahan nating responde is napakadelikado na po na wag naman sana na maaksidente yung sinasakyan nating mga emergency vehicles, ano. So, ayun lang po. So, hinihikayat po namin mapalalaki, mapababae dahil dito po sa organization natin is napaka-open po. Dahil meron din po tayong mga members na mga teachers na nagtuturo sa ating mga community relation na kapag lumalapit po sa ating organization at gustong matuto regarding sa fire operation is binibigyan po natin sila ng pagkakataon. So again, on behalf of Quezon City Firefighters Volunteer Association Incorporated, maraming salamat po sa invitation na binigay niyo po sa amin.
Maraming salamat po sa inyong pakikiisa ngayong hapon sa ating keynote speaker, sa mga fellow presenters natin from DSWD, Philippine National Volunteer Service Coordinating Agency, AFP, CDRC, CDP, OCD, QC Firefighters, Volunteer Association, Akay Missions, Make-A-Wish Foundation, Philippine Native Tree Enthusiast, Philippine Eagle Foundation, Institute for Climate and Sustainable Cities, Haribon Foundation, Climate Reality Project, HRVVMC, Santa Maria Bulacan Municipal Jail, Witak Manila at Kapit Kamay Alternative Learning Avenue. Maraming salamat sa pagbabahagi at pag-engganyo sa ating NSTP students sa mga paraan upang sila ay makiisa at makapagpatuloy sa paglilingkod sa bayan. Kami sa NSRC o National Service Reserve Corps at NSTP Office ay umaasa na higit pang magiging masikhay ang ating serbisyo sa ating bayan, lalo na ngayon tayo ay babawi sa mga nawala, naantala at nahuli dahil sa pandemya. Muli, sa ating NSTP students at reservists, sanay ito ay simula pa lamang ng ating pag-aalay ng sarili, tulad ng sinisimbolo ni Oblek para sa Pilipinas. Maraming salamat at magandang hapon po sa ating lahat.